guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I'm delighted to welcome today's guest, Debbie Heiser. And she's got a doctorate in applied developmental psychology, and she's a founder and CEO. She's also a TEDx speaker, and she has a book coming out called The Mentorship Edge that you can available on pre-order. So I'm really happy to have her on the show to talk about her work and inspire the audience. So Debbie, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So I said, I know we talked about, our audience niche. And so start off by talking about your company and what you do and how the audience can benefit from your expertise.
Oh, sure. I'd love to talk about the Mentor Project. We are an organization, a nonprofit that was founded 5 years ago because we found that mentors have a hard time finding mentees, particularly those who are the top 1% of their fields. So it was something that no one thought about. And it just happened to occur by happenstance from me talking to people who were really high level about mentoring. And we've now grown we've had over 100 mentors who've come through, from astronauts to artists and everything in between. And we are really proud to say that we are able to offer mentoring by these really high level individuals around the globe. One of our mentors just returned from Tanzania, a small town called Sharati, and he taught art to 500 students there. So the organization is really made so that we can spread our expertise and wealth rather than wealth of knowledge rather than wasting it.
Yeah, that's a really fantastic conversation. And apologies if you can hear the sound. It's kind of noisy outside, but to continue, we talk about this idea. You talked about mentorship, and a lot of the high level executives and CEOs, entrepreneurs talk about why they have so much difficulty finding mentorship. Is it because a lot of them think that they don't need it, or they're hard to find, or just kind of a wrong need fit? Talk about that.
So really what happened is, I'll tell you a little bit about, it's actually much more, mentoring is much more complicated than people think. So there's lateral mentoring, which happens all the time with entrepreneurs. It's happening every day. It's how we had our tech explosion. It's how we had the founding fathers came together through lateral mentoring. It's when two experts come together to work on something, and then an explosive impact happens. So that's happening all the time. The mentors who I was speaking with were having a hard time with hierarchical mentoring. They couldn't find mentees. So although we tell people all the time, go find a mentor, the mentors can't find mentees. If you're really high level, you're not around kids very often. And if you're advanced in your field, you're not, your kids are already grown even. So you don't have their friends to even mentor. So a lot of people just aren't exposed to kids and would like to be, but they'll look like, creeps if they go to a park and say, hey, you want to learn quantum mechanics, kid? So it poses a problem. And that's where we came in to solve that problem and bring people together.
Yeah, and quite interesting. And so kind of a follow-up question on that is, a lot of people just fresh out of school or starting their careers, and they're interested in mentorship. How do they go about doing that? Because a lot of my mentors were from books and just people I looked up to, YouTube videos, one or two very direct mentors. But how does one go about getting one and selecting one, and talk about how they should approach it?
There are several different ways, but the one thing I like to stress to people is that mentoring, a lot of people say, just do these 3 things and you'll have a great mentoring relationship. And it doesn't work like that. It's like having a handbook for making friends. You know who you want to hang out with. And mentoring, you have to have a trusted, meaningful relationship with somebody, even if it's online. Like, that's a modern form of mentoring. but you have to have that there in order for it to be something that can work. So the first thing I say is to reach out to people you know. Lateral mentoring, I've coined the term lateral mentoring, is when you take, that's Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. There would not have been Apple without either of them. They came together with two different kinds of expertise and they created Apple. You don't have to say, I'm going to go look for somebody 2 levels above me in a job that, I don't have yet, and I'm going to try to get a mentor. That's an impossible task. It's overwhelming, and it makes it for an awkward interaction because you're like trying to grab from somebody, right? It's also, the mentor is always a nameless, faceless individual. So if you look to people you already know, likely those people have different skills than you and they're experts in their own areas. And they also know other people and have other information they can share. So my advice is to start where you are with who you know and start mentoring in that way. That lateral will always explode you up high in a hierarchical way.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I love how you talked about this thing where it's like it's almost like it's like in dating or whatever, it's like, if you make it too formal, it makes it weird. But if you just allow it to grow, which was really interesting is like, one guest, she described mentorship as, she had negative mentors. She had people she did not want to be like, and she would learn from that. They weren't officially their mentor, but she learned, and then she'd take bits and pieces from different people and experiences, and that was mentorship. So I really like how you identify it's not a formal thing. I mean, it can be, but most of the time it's through what you get. So moving on, and is talking about these kind of qualities. So what makes a good mentor? What makes a bad mentor? How can one be one? And kind of share a success story from your mentor project.
Sure. So everybody knows what a bad mentor is. I don't think I need to really define that. That's any jerk you find on the street, right? Somebody who really doesn't care. And I would say a bad mentor isn't a mentor. Because a mentor it's a two-way street. You both have to trust and find meaningful connection in the person. So a true mentorship and a good relationship that you have is when it's intrinsically motivated. If somebody's paying you to mentor somebody, you're not mentoring, and most companies say, hey, we're going to add this to our performance review. You're required to go mentor people. Well, that's not mentoring. It's like paying somebody to be somebody's friend. So it has to be intrinsically motivated, that the person has to want to do it. And, if your audience is doctors, they can probably appreciate this, that you can have, just like in academia, an instance where you have a person who you're mentoring, even though they're at work, right? You may be getting paid at work, but you're mentoring somebody, and that's something that's it's off the time, it's off the clock. So an example for that would be a college professor who's working with PhD students. They have to advise them through all the programs and getting through their dissertation. But afterwards, maybe they go co-author a book with them. Maybe they help them to get farther along in their career than they would have. They're done. They're not on the pay. In terms of hospitals, mentoring that happens all the time, those are the curbside consults. Those are the grand rounds. Those are the things that are happening that are off the clock. It's you pass somebody and you say, hey, I know that you've done this before. Can you just tell me how to, what your experience was with that? That's mentorship. And people often think of that as nothing. So those are a couple of examples. And I want to give you a really important example that shows life and death, because most of us feel like life and death is going to happen at work, and it's really not. You could just have a bad day. Worst case scenario is you get fired. But Charlie Camarda, he's one of our mentors, and he was on the mission following the Columbia disaster. So he was tasked with making sure that he and the other astronauts were tasked with making sure that theirs could come home safely, that they didn't have a problem on reentry. So Charlie and his team are out in space, right? They're out there. It's not like you can say, oh man, I'm going to just go back. And they have a problem, the same one that Columbia had. And they knew they couldn't re-enter. So Charlie said, I'm not going to call my hierarchical NASA mentors that I had. He called his friends, his lateral mentors, and asked them what they should do. Because this was life and death. They were going to die if they didn't fix it. They were told they had to do a spacewalk in order to make this happen. So they were able to do this in the middle of space. He had his like little black book of friends, lateral mentors that he could call in case of an emergency. And he did that. And they returned safely. And that's the kind of thing that we never think of as mentorship, but that's super powerful for us. And no matter what your profession is, if you're put in that position, think immediately, who are my lateral mentors who I can go to, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, I really love that. And, it's talking about this idea where you have people you can ask and just kind of, some of the best mentors I had, they use their position, we could hang out with a beer or coffee or just, talk, just nothing formal. It's just kind of an informal way of sharing and helping people rise up. Talking about, generation, you talked about lateral. Our mentors, talk about the difference in the dynamic between older, younger mentee versus mentors, mentees that are of the same like generation.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the problems, issues, how to approach it?
So I've seen, mentoring happen at all ages, and age really doesn't end up being a factor. Everybody keeps saying, oh, well, we need reverse mentoring so that people who are younger can teach older people technology things. But really and truly, the main thing is expertise. So if you were really to present to me reverse mentoring, I might call that lateral mentoring, because it's really saying that two people have an expertise. One has one, the other has another. They're not the same, and you're really helping each other. So the biggest thing I see is that people think of life as hierarchical. And that's because you go to the workplace and you have a boss and you're trying to impress your boss. You never want your boss to know you don't know what you're doing. And so that's the biggest thing. So the only problem I could see in reverse mentoring is that there is pressure with somebody who is mentoring their boss in technology that it better go right. And the person better get it, and it better be something that they can find valuable. And that is something that can be an issue with mentoring, because is it truly mentoring, or are you doing it because you feel pressure because you have to? In terms of generations, though, I've seen people of all generations working together. And when you really look at it and you take some of the boundaries away, it really does help. And I'll give you an example from the book with the military. I was speaking with Lieutenant Colonel J.J. Snow. She was in the military, and she talked about how everything is very hierarchical when you're working day to day. When there's an emergency or a crisis, all those walls come down and you start getting mentorship from everybody, because you need to, just like Charlie needed to in space. He was like, I'm going to call whoever's going to save me. That's what happens in the military, right? So you go side to side. It doesn't matter age or rank at that point. You're working laterally to get mentored. So I would take out age in terms of mentoring and put more in terms of hierarchical and lateral in terms of crisis. When there's a crisis, turn to anybody and take out those boundaries. But age really isn't something that I see as an issue. It's more rank. That's what it is.
Yeah, really interesting. Kind of reminds me of, my days on call in the hospital when, like there's 2 a.m. and there's this emergency, and then there was like people you could draw upon, and just, you had your chiefs, your upper levels, and you had nurses and so your co-residents as well. So that's, it's very powerful. And then kind of, talking about, taking mentorship and then applying it to your this making an impact. You talk about generativity and its importance. And what is generativity? Why is it crucial? How can people start to incorporate this concept into their lives?
So what happened when I started to look, I'm an aging specialist, and I was a researcher in aging, looking at doing research on everything no one wants to have, like Alzheimer's, frailty, depression. And somebody came to me and they said, what do we have to look forward to as we get older? And I didn't have anything to say, because I was saying, well, we'll fix some of these terrible things that we can look forward to. Mm-hmm. And then I realized I needed to take a step back and actually see, what do we have to look forward to? So I looked at our emotional trajectory, and generativity is an emotional milestone that we reach. So just like we have physical milestones like walking and talking, and so if we're aging, we have a steep incline of our abilities and then a slow, steady decline in our physical abilities. Emotionally, we start at zero at the same place, and it goes up and it never goes down. There are outliers, but this is the trajectory we can expect emotionally. So I'm in my mid-50s. I always tell my students, I'm happier than you guys who are in your 20s, but I can't run as fast as you. Do I care? No. So generativity is where in midlife, you're really built, just like walking and talking, to have a desire to give back. And the reason for that is that we all have all these check boxes that, I went to college, I, bought a house, I have a spouse, or whatever the deal is. You have all these boxes that you feel like you need to check. Then you check them, and then what? Then you're left with, did my life matter? And so generativity is saying, I want to leave a legacy. I want to give back. I want to make sure that a piece of me lives in somebody else, that my footprint is left here and that it was a meaningful footprint. So that's what that is. And there are 3 ways that we engage in generativity: volunteering, mentoring, and philanthropy. And mentoring is the only one that we're actually giving a piece of our own personal knowledge or abilities, skills, or values to somebody else. And so that's why I focus on mentoring.
Very, very, very powerful. So I love this idea. Just there's like it reminds me of because I had professors in medical school, and they were saying that private practice or running their own clinic, they could 2x, 3x their salary, but they chose academia because they were pouring into others, and they had a lot of creative freedom, and so they would take the almost quarter of what they could make and just kind of give back. And it's really reminds me of what you were talking about. I know we have like 5 minutes remaining, and so talk about how leadership fits into this, and also how coming of age. So, you have a younger, you have a middle, and then you have older generation, and how that translates into, passing the torch, leadership. Just curious to hear your thoughts.
So true leaders are helping others to tell their story and to be their own individual. And true leaders want another person's expertise to come through and shine through. That's what makes things work well. So a lot of times experts or leaders feel intimidated by other people. Like if their expertise is coming through, I'm not going to shine. But what really happens when you start to engage with mentoring is that everyone wins in that case. So if I start a mentoring program, or I say I'm going to lead through mentoring, it's still my show, right? And it all comes back to my team, the explosiveness of my organization, or whatever it is. Everyone wins. And the ones, when you're a leader who is not tapped into that, you lose a lot of expertise. So one of the areas that was most inspiring to me when I started was talking to hospitals who were letting physicians go, and they were retiring, and their expertise walked right out that door. And the younger generation wasn't saying that they couldn't do it, but why couldn't there be a transition period where they could pass on their information and knowledge as a library learning resource for people, so that when they're stuck in a situation where they haven't seen something before, they can tap into the wisdom of that person rather than losing that whole library. So that's when I look at leadership. I look at it's an opportunity to capitalize on every bit of knowledge and skill that's available. And it does not diminish you as a leader. It only enhances you as a leader. And that's where mentorship comes in.
Yeah, again, it reminds me of my. I went to Baylor for med school, and back in the like '90s, 2000s, it was a powerhouse. And then after the financial crisis, they went through some difficulty, and a lot of the older doctors that had made a significant name for themselves, they retired, and they kind of a newer generation, and what really wasn't the same until they started to bring back some of that caliber. So really interesting. How can people find you and follow you and reach out to you and follow you and work with you?
Well, you
Hmm.
can reach me. I have my own personal website, which is deborahheiser.com. You can reach me, mentorproject.org. I encourage you, if you are interested in mentorship and any student of any age, it is a resource that's free for anybody. And of course, we're a nonprofit, so we're always looking for support in any way as well. And please go to any outlet for books to check out The Mentorship Edge. It's on pre-order already. So that's how you can find me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation and really
I did too.
important. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me and wishing you continued success with this.
Yeah, and for all the audience and listeners, be sure to give Debbie's socials a like and follow. And again, really a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you